Good morning again, and welcome to the 2021 Garden State Region Spring Conference. This morning, in lieu of name tags, we're using our names at the bottom of this screen. Our program today is jam-packed and filled with Torah study, election, installation of our new president and a board of directors, a virtual visit to Zacharias Franco College, and a panel discussion with Rabbi Rachel Sawston of Fairlawn Jewish Center, Dr. Barbara Gittelstein, President Emerita of the College of New Jersey, and Commissioner Karen Fryer, Region Public Affairs Manager for PSE&G. An evaluation on Spring Conference will be emailed to you in a day or two, so please keep this in mind as we begin. If any of you experience technical problems, please contact Sheila Kaufman. Sheila's contact information is in the email that was sent to you earlier last night or a few days ago, so please look for it. And now we have a lot of special guests today, and I'd like to quickly introduce them. They'll be speaking later, but I'd like to highlight them now. We have with us this morning Debbie Kaner-Goldich, Women's League International President, and we're so excited she's here in person. We have Rabbi Ellen Williams-Fields, Women's League Executive Director, and we're excited to have you here this morning as well. Also here is Marcia Strongen, Women's League Spring Conference Consultant, and Toby Mazer, Women's League Conference Co-Consultant. Also with us, and we're excited about this, our Women's League past international presidents, Corey Snyder and Evelyn Auerbach. Evelyn is also a past president of the Garden State region. Also spending time with us this morning are Sandy Blumenthal, Women's League Region Services Chair, and Ellen Kaner-Bresnik, Women's League Education Co-Chair. And also in attendance, and last but not least, are the past presidents of our Garden State region with us today. Meryl Balaban, Hetty Bellman, Marion Mull, Marlene Oslick, and Eileen Rothman. Thank you all for joining us today. And now I'd like to ask Sarah Allman, President of the East Brunswick Jewish Center, to please lead us in the Hatikva and the Star Spangled Banner. Sarah?
Olod balev afenima, nefesh Yehudi homiya, ufaten Israel kadima, hayin letzion Sophia, od lata tikvateyu, Hachikva Shinarapayim Lian Wakshi Beatseyu Eretzion Yerushalayim Lian Wakshi Beatseyu Eretzion Yerushalayim. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, all the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets with glare bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was lovely. Thank you so much. And now I'd like to ask Debbie Kainer-Goldich, International President of Women's League, to say hello and say a few words to us this morning.
Good morning and shalom, friends. Thank you so much, Teresa. As President of Women's League for Conservative Judaism, I welcome you to your Garden State Region Conference. It is a pleasure for me to greet you today in person, although I wish we were together, biyachad, in real person. This has been a unique and challenging year. We started our year with our virtual international convention in July. Since then, we have offered continuous programming with opportunities for learning and engagement. Our weekly newsletter encourages our members to join programs in sisterhoods and regions all over North America. In spite of the pandemic, the newsletter tells everyone that Women's League is alive and well. And if you are not subscribed to it, please let your region president, Teresa, or me know, and we will connect you. During these past 12 months, I have had the opportunity to greet many of you through the magic of Zoom. Together, we have celebrated sisterhood paid-up membership events, Torah Fund events, Women's League Shabbat services, and now Region Conference. Those visits are an important part of my role as President of Women's League. Your comments and suggestions allow our organization to move forward with fresh ideas. Please continue to invite me to your events so that you can reach out personally. Soon, I hope to be on the road traveling and would love to come next door from Pennsylvania to New Jersey to be together with you in person. And so today, as you are together with your region sisters at your conference, please take advantage of all that your sisterhood, your region, and the international organization has to offer you as a conservative Jewish woman. Please join me in thanking your outgoing region officers and board and Teresa Samter for their hard work and support of Women's League over the last 3 years. And please welcome your incoming executive committee and board as they embark on an exciting road ahead. Thank you and lehitraot. I hope to see you very soon.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you very much for being here. It means a lot to me. Okay. And the next part of our program, Rabbi Alan Wilens Fields, Executive Director of Women's League, will guide us in Torah study. We will count the Omer, and Sarah Ullman will sing Mishaberak. During the pause between verses, please think of these persons you know who need healing. Rabbi, would you please begin?
Thank you. Boker Tov to everybody, and it's so good to be with all of you this morning. Thank you for inviting me. This is my home region. I live in the Garden State region, and I'm happy to see a lot of my sisters from Torah El in Oakhurst. And it's also fantastic to be with everyone today because yesterday I marked an anniversary. Yesterday began my 4th year working at Women's League for Conservative Judaism, one of the best places to be. So it's really wonderful when people ask me, so where's your congregation? I said, my congregation of 40,000 women across North America, and it's the best. So it's really wonderful to be with everyone today. Looking forward to this Shabbat. We have a double header this Shabbat. The Torah reading of Parshat Bahar Bechukotai, and with that, we conclude the book of Leviticus, Sefer Vayikra. Parshat Bechukotai, known for its threats and curses, opens with a list of blessings. We're taught by the rabbis of the Talmud that one should conclude any section of study on a positive note. Commentators through the ages thus ask, why do the curses overwhelm the blessings? And emphasis is given to the negative over the positive. Indeed, the greater part of the text, 30 verses worth, is concerned with curses, while a smaller part, 13 verses, address the theme of blessings. Commentators such as Ibn Ezra deny that significance is given to the negative over the positive. He writes, only the empty-headed would assert that the curses exceed the blessings. This is not true. The blessings were stated in a general fashion while the curses are given in detail, so as to deter and intimidate those who hear them. Ibn Ezra makes a valid point. He reasons that so much attention is paid to the curses because people seem to respond best to negative reinforcement. We've often seen this in political campaigns. In general, we're told that they're not told what blessings will come if we support a given candidate. Instead, we're often presented with the curses that are certain to come if we support the candidate's opponent. Punishment rather than reward is seen as the most effective impetus for acting a given way, or rather for not acting a given way. In our not too distant past, models of parenting and education offered the same emphasis of punishment over reward. Teachers today are working hard to focus on the joy of learning and expanding the experience of learning, but society continues sometimes to fall back on the negative. We tend to look for the negative and to overlook the positive. Some listen to talk show hosts who tell us what's wrong with everything. Often television newscasters keep us waiting until the end of the broadcast to possibly share with us an uplifting human interest story, or one that will bring a smile to our faces. Positive headlines often seem like they're a rarity. Often it's more frequent for people to give complaints than compliments. People seem to enjoy searching for something negative to say, often ignoring or even denying any positive acts or accomplishment. We have the misguided tendency to dwell on the negative, to allow the bad to greatly outweigh the good, even when there's a lot more good in the world than we think. Our sages remind us in the Midrash, the rabbinic legend, Bamidbar Rabbah, divinity is found in placing goodness over calamity and retribution. We have to remember that. We have to remember the goodness in the world. Our Torah reading this Shabbat, Parshat Bechukotai, is meant to conclude the book of Leviticus, Sefer Vayikra, with a positive message, not a negative one. And that's why it begins with a list of blessings. Yes, there is negativity in life. There are difficult situations that might touch us, but we must not forget that each day offers its own blessing if we take the time to find it, experience it, and celebrate it as well. That's why during this period of time called Sfirat HaOmer, the time between the second day of Passover and Shavuot, which is the barley season, we count the Omer, which is the Hebrew word literally for barley. We count up to 49 days, 7 weeks until Shavuot, when we celebrate the receipt of the Torah at Mount Sinai. We do not count down, but rather count up from 1 to 49 to see that each day we have new blessings and see the positive in everyday life. And so today is the 35th day of the Omer, which is 5 weeks and 1 day of the Omer. Remember, count your blessings every day, and may they increase every day. Yehi ratzon shenihiyeh biyachad b'shana haba'ah, panim el panim, b'briut, b'simcha, u'v'shalom. May it be God's will that next year we will be together face to face in good health, happiness, and peace. And let us all say, Amen.
Amen.
Amen. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Rabbi, are we going to count the Omer now? Or you did though? Okay,
I did in my Devar Torah.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. We say the bless. It's a good opportunity to teach people. Always an opportunity, you see. So we count the Omer in the evening when it begins with the blessing. And if you say it in the morning, one typically doesn't say a bracha with it. So, but every day should be a blessing.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Sarah?
Mekor habracha lehiroteinu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Yishebera Yimoteu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for being here and singing with us. You brought a lot of peace with your song. Thank you so much. And before we move on to the elections, I just wanted to mention that we have another past Garden State Region past president, Penny Leifer. Unfortunately, I missed saying her name, and I regret that. But we are very proud of all our past presidents. And if there's another one in another box that I don't know of, please let me know. I appreciate it. Thank you. And Penny, thank you for joining us this morning. Now I'd like to call on Eileen Rothman, Garden State Region Nominating Chair, to give the report of the nominating committee.
Boy, I feel so relaxed. It is an honor for me to serve as the chair of the Garden State Region Nominations Committee and present the slate of the Garden State Region officers and board for 2001 to 2024. Before I present the slate, I would just like to recognize the members of the nominating committee. I did not do this alone. I'd like to recognize Merrill Balaban, Hetty Bellman, Donna Burkett, Fran Katz, Janice Saferstein, and Lynette Cedar. So now we go to the slate of officers. Madam President, the Garden State Region Nominating Committee submits the following nominations for the Garden State Region 2021 to 2024 Executive Committee. President, Lynette Cedar. Vice President of Programming, Susan Winter. Vice President, Sisterhood Support, Donna Burkett. Torah Fund Vice President, Sue Romanoff. Communications Secretary, Eileen Rothman. Corresponding Secretary, Sebly Hausler. Financial Secretary, Cheryl Sesler. Recording Secretary, Judy Solomon. Treasurer, Cindy Manis. Parliamentarian, Nancy Meyrowitz. Immediate past president and nominations chair, Teresa Samtor. Board advisors, Merrill Balaban and Hetty Bellman. Nominations for the board include Region Directory, Susan Sefras. Financial team, Arlene Stein. Madricha for the Women's League Convention, Terry Maines. Communications team, Webmaster and Zoom support, Sheila Kaufman. Programming team is Community Affairs, Michelle Barbaro. Education, Helene Nee. Israeli Affairs, Fran Katz. Public Policy, Marlene Oslick. And Social Action, Susan Winter. On the Sisterhood Support team, we have Susan Hammer, Sharon Hammerman, Janice Saferstein. On the Torah Fund team, we have Debbie Gerber, Sharon Hammerman, and Gloria Jaslow, and also Torah Fund Special Gifts, Ruth Ocht. Don't think I forgot anybody.
No, you got everyone except unfortunately we have a typo with Judy's name not being there.
Oh, okay. But I mentioned.
But you mentioned her.
I mentioned her. Fantastic.
Yes. Thank you, Eileen, for your report. And with there being no other nominations, I request additional nominations. I request that Secretary Nancy Meyrowitz cast a unanimous ballot to elect the slate as presented.
I cast a unanimous ballot to elect the slate as presented.
My thanks to the nominating committee for your important work, and congratulations to these outstanding, dedicated, and committed women who are now elected for the 2021-2024 term of the Garden State Region of Women's League for Conservative Judaism. Okay. Thank you all, and thank you to your committee for your hard work, Eileen. Now we're going to have a message from Barbara Ezring, Women's League International Torah Fund Chair. Barbara is not able to be with us this morning, but she has recorded a short but important message about Torah Fund for us.
I'm so happy to be with you at your region conference. I'm Barbara Ezring, International Chair of Women's League for Conservative Judaism's Philanthropy, Torah Fund. What an amazing and challenging year of fundraising we're having. Our usual approaches to raising money have been tweaked. Very special volunteers followed unique protocols to go to JTS to sort, pack, and label Torah Fund pins. Many pins traveled to a variety of cities before they reached their destinations. And some pins are still on their way to their recipients. You developed virtual Torah Fund events that wowed. You introduced your members to students and graduates of all 5 institutions of higher Jewish learning that we support. You studied Torah, learned about foods and customs in the cities of our seminaries, heard beautiful music, visited museum exhibits, mixed drinks, and honored special people in your communities. Everyone had fun, but most important, Sisterhood Torah Fund chairs and vice presidents maintained relationships with our Torah Fund donors. Thank you so much. And thank you to your Region Torah Fund Vice President. You trained, organized, emailed, phoned, attended meetings, supported your sisterhoods, and created region-wide virtual events. It is always the right time to donate to Torah Fund. Your gifts to the Torah Fund General Campaign provide programming and scholarships for students who attend the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York, Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies in Los Angeles, Schechter Institutes in Jerusalem, Seminario Rabbinico Latino Americano in Buenos Aires, and Zacharias Frankel College in Potsdam. Contributions to the special project, Creating New Spaces, will be used at Ziegler for the Women's League Institute on Gender Bias and Harassment, and at JTS for the Women's League Study Space in the new undergraduate residence hall. Plan for the future. Join the Torah Fund Legacy Society and ensure the future for the students of our institutions of higher Jewish learning with your bequest. We are so grateful for your creativity, your enthusiasm, and your patience during this challenging year. Toda Rabbah to each of you for your continued support and donations to Torah Fund. B'yachad, together, we guarantee Jewish continuity.
We're sorry Barbara couldn't be here today, but we're glad she sent us that important message about the B'yachad and Spaces campaigns. Now I would like to introduce Marcia Strongen, our Women's League consultant. Marcia is the treasurer of Women's League for Conservative Judaism, as well as our Spring Conference consultant. She is a past region president, treasurer, and is, of course, a past sisterhood president. She has also managed 2 different Judaica shops for a total of 15 years, bringing one shop into the 21st century by putting all the shop's records onto a point-of-sale program. She graduated from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, majoring in education, speech, and drama. Marsha also earned her law degree from the University of Texas. She has worked as a finance attorney in both the corporate and public sectors. Prior to going into law, she had a short career in the brokerage business. She is married and has one daughter. Marsha lives in Austin, Texas, with her husband and 2 dogs. Other than Women's League, she says she loves gardening, needlework, and cooking. Marsha, would you please share your Women's League message with us?
You're muted, Marsha. Start over. You're muted.
Okay. Those are going to be the words we remember from all this time. Unmute
No.
yourself.
No, it won't, but that's...
Good morning. It's so exciting to be with all of you today. Since I live in Austin, Texas, I'm a member of the Intercontinental region. I lived for a time in Portland, Oregon, which is in the North by Northwest region. And today I get to spend time with Garden State. It's great to be able to visit so many parts of the country all on Zoom. I want to thank Teresa, Lynette, Hetty, Helene, Eileen, Meryl, Sheila, Susan, Terry, and Toby for letting me be a part of the planning for this conference. I joined Sisterhood many years ago as a way to meet other women. I had just moved to Austin, Texas with my new husband, and I didn't know a soul. The Sisterhood made me feel welcome and, of course, put me right to work. Back then, we all had jobs, children, husbands, and homes to take care of. We thought we could do everything, and we did. To meet our busy schedules, we met on Sunday mornings when our kids were in Sunday school. My synagogue has been egalitarian for many years, so even back then, women served on the synagogue board. We not only cooked in the kitchen, we learned to daven and took leadership parts in the service. Those women remain my friends, my counselors, my strength. As I became more involved and went to conferences and conventions, I met many more women who, like me, share a passion for the sisterhood of Women's League, the sisters we choose. These women, like me, are driven for personal growth, learning, and the future of our rabbis and cantors. As I advanced through many positions in my sisterhood, the region, and now the international board, I have felt more and more fulfilled. I attend many learning sessions and was privileged to attend a Women's League Leadership Training Institute. If you get a chance to attend one of these sessions in person or online, take the opportunity. The sessions will help with personal growth and train you for leadership in any context. Facing challenges with COVID and Zoom are our new normal. Nevertheless, Women's League has found a way to be biyachad, together. In March of 2020, I joined a group of Women's League members as we sang Mishaberach for those who were ill and wished for a speedy recovery to those who were sick and a quick end to the pandemic. Little did we know that over a year later, we would still be meeting. That group has kept me sane during all that time. I'm immune compromised, so I've stayed home during this past year. My husband and I didn't even go to the grocery store. We had everything delivered. This group, now called Makom B'Yachad, Time Together, has celebrated births, birthdays, anniversaries. We've comforted those who were sick or lost loved ones. The one constant in my isolation was that every day at 12 noon, well, 11 for me, there would be a group of friends who gather to comfort one another. I encourage each of you to join us. We always encourage newcomers. Margaret Thatcher once said, "Look at the day when you're extremely satisfied at the end. It's not a day when you lounge around doing nothing. It's when you've had everything to do and you've done it." Women's League offers many opportunities to do something. We have an incredible number of programs online. Although I'm now retired, I've kept busy with programs for my local sisterhood, my region, and Women's League. We're currently holding Hebrew classes for all levels of Hebrew learners. We now have 120 women in our classes, and a Benot Mitzvah class for women who didn't have the opportunity to have a bat mitzvah, or who just want to refresh their knowledge or renew their bat mitzvah. We had sessions on Jews in film and Jews in comedy, cooking demonstrations, and many of our women participated in the Masorti Days of Study, which in the past took place in Israel. But because of COVID, many more women had the opportunity to join from their homes. We have ongoing programs including Women's League Reads, a book club, personal conversations, discussions on a variety of topics, and health and wellness programs. If you miss a program, know that videos of past programs and many other resources can be found on our updated website, WLCJ.org, which we'll now find much easier to use. Consulting Services has presented seminars on how to use Zoom, leadership development, and sisterhood synagogue relations for all members. Feel free to contact Renee Bravich if you'd like a personalized workshop for your sisterhood. I would put Renee's email in the chat, but it's closed. So write this down. Her email is rravich, which is RRAVICH @WLCJ.org. My sisterhood has used consulting services to have a board training session every year at the beginning of our terms. The Women's League Social Action Project for this term is Stock the Shelves. In response to food insecurity caused in part by the pandemic, sisterhoods are being encouraged to collect food or make donations. Thank you, Sheila. They are encouraged to collect food or make donations to their local food banks. Suggestions of what to collect is listed in Women's League Week. WLCJ resolutions can be used as a basis for sisterhood programs or ways to promote social action projects. And don't forget that you can find Women's League on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram. We've scheduled workshops for all the incoming presidents of your region and for the incoming Garden State Board, so mark your calendars now. The Sisterhood Presidents Workshop, which is for new and existing presidents, will be Wednesday evening, June 23rd at 7 p.m. And the Region Board Workshop will be Wednesday evening, June 30th, also at 7 p.m. Thank you for coming to this conference and participating in your sisterhood, your region, and in Women's League.
Thank you, Marcia, for speaking to us about Women's League. The Garden State region would like to thank you and Toby Mazer for all your support and guidance in getting us to the 2021 Garden State Region Virtual Spring Conference off the ground and onto our screens. It was a lot of work and we appreciate everything you did and all your time. All right, now it's time for our panel discussion with Women, Power, and Purpose with Helene, our conference chair. I'd like to ask Helene Need to please come and bring our Power and Purpose program to you.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Helene Nee, Programming Chairperson for the Garden State Region. Welcome to Women, Power, and Purpose. When I started thinking about what we should focus on for our spring conference, I realized that even though it's been a year of loss and pain for all of us, it's also been a year of healing, of courage, and of wisdom. And most importantly, it's been a time of first for women. We now have women in powerful positions such as Kamala Harris, also known as Mamala, our first female vice president, Janet Yellen, the first female Secretary of the Treasury, and Dr. Shuli Rubin Schwartz, the first female chancellor of the Jewish Theological Seminary in its 135-year history. This year's Nobel Prize to Chemistry went to an all-female team, and there was that famous two-women spacewalk and move over man on the moon. There will soon be a woman on the moon. I was inspired to read about women in power, and I discovered that women have differences of opinion. They view power differently than men. Women view power as purposeful, as a means to an end. Also, for women, it's not power over or domination, but power with. And it's about empowering others, working together and being connected, such as in our Sisterhoods or Women's League, gives us the strength to reach incredible goals. I began to realize that women could use power as positive energy to change our vision of the world. I thought about powerful women and how they reached their leadership positions and the obstacles they faced along the way. I've realized we all could learn a lot from their stories of ambition, boldness, and resilience. So our programming co-chairs, which consist of Susan Winter, Terry Maines, and I, decided to invite 3 ambitious, bold, and courageous women from different fields, academia, business, and religion, to share their vision with us. I would also like to introduce the conference committee members, which include Merrill Balaban, Hetty Bellman, Sheila Kaufman, Eileen Rothman, Teresa Samter, and Lynette Cedar. This wouldn't have been possible without you. I am now privileged and honored to present the women on our panel. First, we present Karen Fryer, Commissioner and Vice Chairwoman of the Essex County Utilities Authority, who now serves as Regional Public Affairs Manager for PSE&G. Now that's someone who deals with power every day. She has 40 years of corporate and community leadership experience. Commissioner Fryer graduated from Kean University with degrees in public administration and political science. She's a congregant of the Temple Ahavas Shalom, the Newark Jewish Museum, and is on their board. Then we present Dr. Barbara Gittenstein, President Emerita of the College of New Jersey, with over 40 years of experience as a college professor and administrator. She is the first woman to serve as president of the College of New Jersey in its 160-year history. That's quite a break from the all-men's club often found in academia. Dr. Gittenstein is now on the Association of Governing Boards of Colleges and University. Dr. Gittenstein earned her BA from Duke University and a PhD in English Literature from the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. She's also published several articles on Jewish and Yiddish literature. Finally, we present Rabbi Rachel Salston, who is the rabbi at the Fairlawn Jewish Center, Congregation B'nai Israel. Rabbi Salston is also a soferet, or ritual scribe, who specializes in Torah scroll repair and restoration. She is an expert on the fitness and usability of Torah scrolls, a role we wouldn't ordinarily ascribe to women. Rabbi Salston received a BA in neuroscience with a minor in Judaic studies from Brandeis University. She earned her rabbinic ordination at the Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies in Los Angeles, and she received the USCJ's Award for Congressional Leadership in 2018. Even though we're on Zoom, let's give our panelists a hearty welcome. During the panelists' presentations, everyone will be muted and the chat will be disabled so you can listen to their stories. However, we will welcome your questions and comments during the question and answer period at the end. Okay, so again, welcome to our panel. And I'd like to start off with our introduction. Okay, please tell us your story. How did you reach your position of leadership? What obstacles did you face along the way? And how did you overcome these obstacles? And I'd like to call on Rabbi Salston to begin with our stories.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Boker Tov. Thank you so much, Helene. I'm so honored to be joining you this morning in my home region. A longtime supporter of Women's League of Conservative Judaism and Torah Fund and recipient of the amazing gifts of the work that you all do. I grew up in East Brunswick, New Jersey, at the East Brunswick Jewish Center, which at that time in my childhood was a non-egalitarian conservative shul. And I always grew up going to shul with my dad and my mom and knew all the tefillot and learned to read Torah actually with my father in a closed door session with an associate rabbi that we had to keep quiet. I led services in many of our women's minyanim in the shul and really pushed as much of how I could within my context. At that time, I did not think I was going to be a rabbi, even though everyone I knew when I was a kid always said, Rachel, you should be a rabbi. I didn't know what they meant, and I really fought against it. I said, no, I'm going to be a scientist or I'm going to be a lawyer. I was pre-med. I went to Brandeis undergrad, where I immediately joined the Brandeis University Conservative Organization and the Traditional Egalitarian Minyan. One of the major reasons that I chose Brandeis, in addition to the academia, was the Jewish community and the diversity of Jewish experiences, and knowing that there was an opportunity for vibrant egalitarian Jewish life. That continues to this day. There have been a lot of ups and downs, but currently there is Masorti at Brandeis University, and I'm a very, very proud alumna. I was pre-med, and I studied neuroscience. And around my sophomore year, I was taking biology and physics at the same time. And I realized that it was no longer my passion. So I thought, I'm not going to medical school. So I thought I would perhaps pursue academia. So I spent the summer between my sophomore and junior years at the University of Haifa working in a neurobiology lab. And I was on a bus to Yerushalayim as many Shabbatot as I possibly could. So it was very clear to me what I really wanted to be doing in Israel. I had started wearing talit and tefillin, participated that summer in Nashot HaKotel, Women of the Wall. And I came back to campus in the fall and decided I'm applying to rabbinical school. So I was originally interested in hospital chaplaincy, coming from a very healthcare background and a medical family. The year after I graduated college, I was a part-time chaplain at Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital, New Brunswick, and I also lived in East Brunswick. And I also developed my business in Torah repair as a soferet. I had been an apprentice to Jen Taylor Friedman, the first woman in modern times to write a Sefer Torah. I'm very proud that I'm already of the second generation and have worked to, God willing, train the third and fourth generations of women doing work of Torah, scribing, and restoration. Many of the women who came before me had to lie when they purchased supplies and to fill in. I am so grateful to the women who came before me to lay the foundations so that I have never had to lie to the proprietor of Judaica store to say it's for my husband or my brother.
Wow.
I went to rabbinical school in Los Angeles and made a huge leap across the country, where I was a rabbinic intern at Burbank Temple Emmanuel, and I taught religious school in several locations, including teaching calligraphy to many youngsters, spending a year in Yerushalayim. I moved back to the East Coast to be the ritual director of Park Avenue Synagogue 3 years ago. And I then worked full-time last year as a hospital chaplain at RWJ New Brunswick, not knowing that the year that I was going to be working at a level 1 trauma center in a 900-bed hospital, there was going to be a global pandemic. And I continued going to work. We changed our schedule a bit, but I continued going to work when the entire world was shutting down. And amidst that, I was in my third job search in as many years. And I decided I was ready to go be a congregational rabbi. And I am now celebrating this week the 3rd anniversary of my ordination as a rabbi from the Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies. And I am the solo rabbi of Fairlawn Jewish Center, Congregation B'nai Israel. We are a somewhat in the range of 270 member unit synagogue here in Bergen County. And I was hired entirely via Zoom. It was not until I signed my contract that I set foot in my shul. And yesterday, we had our first in-person minyan in our sanctuary in over a year, since last March, since the shutdown in Parshat Ki Tisa. We celebrated the bat mitzvah, already delayed a year. The celebration, of course, she is a bat mitzvah, of a girl who's now nearly 14. And we had about 20 people in our sanctuary, and it was absolutely delightful to begin the re-entry, specifically with the celebration of another young Jewish woman entering the full community of Israel. And I'm really looking forward to what the coming years bring, and the coming weeks and months of gradual reopening. And I'm so glad to be here this morning.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Salston, and Mazel Tov, right? Must feel so good to be back. Okay, and now we're going to move on to Dr. Barbara Gittenstein. Again, please tell us your story. How did you reach your position of leadership, and what obstacles did you face along the way, and how did you overcome those obstacles?
Well, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to join you all and to follow that remarkable story that the rabbi just shared with us. I did not have a clear career path when I started thinking about what I was going to do when I grew up. And really what happened to me was things happened to me and I reacted. Sometimes they weren't happy things. When I was a young adult, I really thought I was going to be an opera singer. I was convinced I had the talent of Leontyne Price and that I was going to be singing on the stage at the Met. Apparently, I was the only one who thought I had that kind of talent. And as a consequence, I did not succeed. So I was in college, and I decided to focus on what I loved, which was reading. I became an English major. And when it became time to graduate, I also realized I really wasn't prepared for the world. So I went to graduate school. And then I got into academia. It's sort of like I fell into these things. But I think it's important to share with you that my growth as a woman and my growth as a Jewish woman did not begin with those failures and did not begin in higher education. It began with the fact that I was born into a Jewish family in a small town in South Alabama, where my family was one of 2 Jewish families in the town, and my family was one of 4 Jewish families in the county. My father owned the largest employer in the town, and put us in a very peculiar position. It was a hard life. It was not an easy life. It was not an easy life to be a Jew in that particular environment. Southern Baptist attitudes towards Jews was not particularly positive. But I had the fortune of having a wonderful family, and particularly a very strong grandmother. My grandmother, who has always been my angel, actually had a child, got pregnant and had a child during right after the 1918 pandemic. She never talked about it. I did not even focus on that until this pandemic. Her husband had tuberculosis and spent many months, in fact, years, curing in upstate New York, as they did in the 20s, for tuberculosis. She always maintained, however, she lived the best life in the world. And so what I learned was what I used to refer to as the Mima way. That was what I called my grandmother. And that was always to see that you had the best experience, that you figured out a way through difficulty. I went away to boarding school, as did my siblings, because the high school where in the town that we lived was not accredited at the time. That was one of the reasons we went away. The other reason was that my mother, who was chronically depressed, hated the town and wanted to do everything that she could to get us out of the town. And we did. That experience of 2 boarding schools was very revealing to me. I learned a lot more about very different issues of class. And I was put in a situation, particularly with the second boarding school, where while there was absolutely an undercurrent of anti-Semitism, there was a celebration of women's leadership. And that was magnificent to learn from. There were 3 women who ran the school. They could not have been more different. I am not making up these names. It sounds like a Dickens novel, but there was Laura Crease Bunch, Mildred Brown, and Sally E. Lurton. And they were as different as you can imagine. Sally E. Lurton was the woman who became my first mentor other than in my family. And I remember distinctly at an interview somewhere, someplace, because I did a lot of interviewing, because that's what academics do. You go out and you travel the world if you're going to move this nation, if you're going to move up in administration. I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I'm thinking, who am I thinking of? And I realized I was thinking of Sally Lurton, because I wanted to grow up and be Sally Lurton. And I hope I did that. I went to Duke University, as you've heard, and to Chapel Hill. And while I was there, I decided, and if you got to think about the circumstance, how peculiar it was, that I was going to write a dissertation on Yiddish literary influences of Jewish American fiction. Now, I think one of our colleagues before was mentioned had some experience at Chapel Hill. It's not a very strong Jewish community, and certainly not in administration. So to find someone who could support my interest in scholarly research, my major advisor reached out to the Vice Chancellor for Health Sciences, who was a Yiddish speaker, an extraordinary guy from Manitoba, Canada, who I learned as much about administration as I did about Yiddish literature from. The scholarly focus that I chose was the first public commitment that I made to making sure that I announced that I was Jewish. And I did that quite consciously because particularly when I started interviewing for administrative posts, I didn't want anyone to imagine that I was going to be comfortable in an anti-Semitic circumstance. And if they had such feelings, just don't pursue my candidacy. And I look back at it now and realize just how conscious that was. That included my decision to keep my maiden name, Gittenstein, because if you're doing research on Jewish American literature, Hart is not as helpful as the name Gittenstein is. My first 15 years in the profession was filled with classroom teaching and scholarly work. And then I decided I was going to go into administration. I went into administration not in my first job, but in my second job in State University of New York at Oswego, where I became the associate provost. And one of the most interesting experiences I had after having been chair of a truly fractious English department, they all hated each other. It was an amazing experience, and it really taught me a lot about how to manage difference, was that I was responsible for the Office of Institutional Research. That's the office that collects all the data for self-assessment. 2 brilliant people. Unfortunately, the director was from Iran and the associate director was from Iraq. That was right in the midst of the Iran-Iraq war. And here I was, this little Jewish girl from South Alabama, trying to negotiate their differences. I was much more successful, I must say, than the international folks who tried to negotiate that war. In 1992, I was named provost at Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa. I was the first woman to hold any senior administrative position at the university. And in 1999, I was named the first woman and the first Jewish president of the College of New Jersey in Ewing. That's my history.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Gittenstein. Really appreciate it. And then we'll move on to Commissioner Karen Fryer. And Karen, perhaps you can lighten up the background a little since you're in the, oh, okay. I was thinking you're in the shadow, but.
No, sorry about that, but it is probably the LED lighting. So it's as good as it's going to get.
Okay, no problem. In any case.
Thank you for including me today. Humbled to present before this esteemed group and hope my remarks will inspire you to continue growing, learning, and leading at any age. My family roots began in Vilnius, the Altai Mountains of Russia and Germany. Our family settled in Elizabeth during the late 1800s, where my great-grandmother was a founder of the historical Jewish cemetery, Gomel Chesed. In fact, her face and name are on a plaque at the gates. Leadership in our circle of women has carried on for 4 generations. My mother, Barbara Fryer, who I pay tribute to today, was past president, Greater Elizabeth Chapter, National Council Jewish Women, a homemaker, and PTA president. Her twin sister graduated with a teaching degree from College of New Jersey, which at the time was Trenton State. She earned a PhD, first in our family, and founded a preschool in Brooklyn for children with learning disabilities. She has been my rock and mentor, taking me for my first power suit at Loehmann's in Brooklyn. My career as a trailblazing woman in the engineering and infrastructure industry began with the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities, followed by 35 plus years of leadership with a few firsts not easily earned. First woman vice president of governmental affairs for an engineering firm. First woman appointed treasurer of the coordinated campaign for the New Jersey Democratic State Committee during the time of President Clinton's first election, and the first woman sworn in Essex County, where I hang my hat, for the Essex County Utilities Authority, where I was sworn in by the Essex County Board of Chosen Freeholders. My passion for community service, political leadership as a political fundraiser, and governmental affairs professional has always included my heart and mentorship by many. One of my proudest moments was being sworn in by then Mayor Cory Booker, now a U.S. Senator, to chair the Newark Youth Investment Council on Workforce Development, where I helped manage a summer youth program with about $14 million to go out to disadvantaged youth to create opportunities in the engineering and construction space. Every day, I wake up, Baruch Hashem, with blessings, and I say, let this day be one that I fix something. My career path has given me many opportunities to lead large infrastructure projects for public support, including the Hudson-Bergen Light Rail Project, access to Regions Core, or as the press called it before it was killed by Governor Christie, the tunnel to Macy's basement in New York. Construction of the glorious Science Park and Central High Schools in Newark with their innovative solar energy and geothermal designs is what I am the most proud of in the way of construction projects. I bring Tikkun Olam to the greater Newark community, where I serve as a member of the Roseville Charter School K-4 Board of Trustees, guiding the administration during these uncertain times with the pandemic and remote learning by our scholars. Lastly, NJIT Newark is where I hang my hat as first woman appointed to the Board of Overseers close to 20 years ago. The university has a progressive footprint with new facilities and world-class opportunities for young women, of which I have been proud to help set a path. My 3 adult children, Joseph, Juliana, and Rebecca, are my shining stars and grew up with my mantra, lead, follow, or get out of the way. Each of them has brought me nachas as a single mom for many difficult years with their academic and sports achievements and successful careers. They also taught me to face my fears with Zoom. And the first time I did a public presentation trembling with this new technology, I must admit my son Joseph was at my side to log in. Thank you, ladies, and enjoy the presentation today.
Well, and thank you, Commissioner Fryer. Very passionate presentation. And now I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and I'd like to encourage, some conversation back and forth. So even though I might, ask a specific person, if anyone else has an idea, I would like you to kind of jump in. So I might say, okay, and this question is going out to Dr. Gittenstein. And the question is, how do you battle with stereotypes or biases of women, or specifically Jewish women in power? As you know, women in power have been called many names, nasty or pushy, aggressive, bossy, over emotional, etc. I don't have to go into too many details, some far worse than this. And, I wanted to know how you cope and how you battle those stereotypes.
Well, I think the stereotypes that I had to confront most obviously were the stereotypes of a woman being too emotional and a woman not understanding finances. And so I want to talk about those particularly. And I really think that the issue of a woman being too emotional is one of the hardest to deal with. And I want to tell a story that I think captures how women, or at least I found that I had to deal with it. Some of you may remember this story in New Jersey. It was a terrible, terrible moment in the history of the College of New Jersey in 2006. A young man went missing, and it was indicated to the administration that he went missing about a day after he had been seen by friends. That would be like on a Sunday. By Friday, his blood was identified as having been found in the dumpster near the residence hall. 3 months later, his body was found in a landfill. And as you might suspect, during that period of time, the college was completely overwhelmed by pretty horrible media coverage, and also, thank goodness, by the state police and law enforcement, who were wonderful supporters, trying to figure out what happened. There was one particular press conference in which a reporter asked the prosecutor to describe what he thought had happened to the body of the young man. And unfortunately, this prosecutor proceeded to do just that. And it's a pretty horrible kind of story. And I looked in the back and I saw a student whose knees buckled, and I thought she was going to pass out. And I knew at that time that I could not respond the way I wanted to as a president, as a mother, as a woman, as a Jew. I had to stand there and not cry. And I didn't. I was very good at not crying. The minute I got into a private session, I really almost passed out. And I think what that shows, I don't think a man would have been as concerned about showing his emotion as I was, because how would that have been overinterpreted? I still think I did the right thing because I had to project strength to the community, but it was at great expense. The other stereotype that I think I've had to fight with has to do with proving that I could do not as well as Karen, for goodness sake, but do as well as Karen and colleagues like that who deal with financial matters and infrastructure kinds of issues. There was this attitude that women are very good at human interaction and personnel matters and HR and that kind of stuff, but you don't know how to build a building, and you don't know how to balance a budget, and you don't know how to set priorities. And of course, that is all complete bunk. And we all know that. So the way to prove that one is just to do it. One of the things that I often tell young women, whether we're talking about women of color or women, is that these reactions that we're describing, whether you're talking about stereotypes or not, are unfair. And let's just acknowledge that they're unfair and then just do it. In other words, sitting around and complaining about it, personally, I think is a waste of time. It's not that it shouldn't be complained about, it should be, but it takes just too much energy. I tell women and people of color, unfortunately, at the beginning, you will be paid less than your male colleagues. You will be treated with less respect than your male colleagues. Suck it up and prove to them how wrong they are. And eventually, at least in this day and age, we are seeing progress. So that would be my comment about stereotypes.
Wow. Okay. Very well taken. And wow, I admire, your sharing that most difficult, one of the probably more difficult moments.
It was the most difficult moment.
Yes, I can imagine. My goodness. And does anyone else have a comment about stereotypes? Commissioner Fryer, do you have anything to share?
Yes, certainly. So being in a world full of men in early 80s, I would often face roadblocks as I would present comments or strategies. I can remember being pregnant with my daughter, Rebecca, and an engineer on an environmental project had many questions on a piece of legislation that we were trying to get implemented. It was the Superfund bill. It was a very significant piece of legislation. I was the only woman in the room with Congressman Bob Rowe as that legislation and our beloved Senator Frank Lautenberg as it was being written. And this particular engineer was not necessarily a Democrat and was not necessarily happy at some of the language. And he actually turned to me and said, well, perhaps Karen has forgotten some of my policy suggestions because she's pregnant and
oh my God,
often forget things. Well, I taught him a lesson, but I taught him a lesson with success when that legislation was actually implemented and we took a victory lap. It was never a comfortable place in the 70s and 80s to be a woman helping to craft legislation, negotiate, or learn the skills of asking for worth, whether it be financial worth or a place at the table. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, Dr. Gippenstein.
Well, thank you as well, right?
Yes.
Commissioner Fryer, right? I know that there are probably many women in, our generation that have, had similar stories like this and not being taken seriously because of being a woman. And Rabbi Salston, you're, of a younger generation, and I, perhaps you may have some differences of view or opinion about this topic. Because you grew up in a world where, we couldn't imagine that a woman couldn't be a rabbi, whereas in our generation, it was just maybe a dream, that hadn't reached fruition.
I grew up in a world knowing that women could be rabbis, but I had very few actual role models to look to. I knew that it was a possibility. I knew it was something that women did, and I knew that there were women executives, women college professors, women college presidents, women neurosurgeons, women general counsel of large corporations to some extent. And I always knew that I was going to be something in that category. That was my aspiration, but the rabbinate never seemed like an option. There was a disconnect between what was available to me in the larger academic and professional world and what was available to me in the Jewish world. So those stereotypes and which were built into Jewish norms were extremely present in my youth, and something I still experience as the second female to be holding my position at my synagogue. I've been so grateful that actually I have not been encountering it very much, because the answer that I so greatly appreciate Dr. Gittenstein saying of just do it, just be yourself in your position and get the work done in your way, not someone else's way. There's a famous, I believe, Hasidic story of this rabbi named Zusha, who was so concerned that he was going to live his life and then meet, and die and meet the creator of us all. And he was afraid that God was going to ask him, why were you not Moshe? Why weren't you the greatest rabbi, the greatest leader of our people of all time? But the real question he resolved was, God is going to ask him, why were you not Zusha? Why were you trying to be Moshe? So something that has been very clear to me throughout my education, that was something we spoke a lot about in rabbinical school, was don't try to be someone else. Be the best you that you can be to serve the community and to serve God.
Can I add one? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
Can I add one thing too? And I don't know how true this would be for the rabbi, but my guess is for the commissioner, it might also be true. But during my development, because of the years and where I was studying and where I grew up, many of my mentors were men. And you had to find mentors that were your mentors. They did not have to look like you. They did not have to come from your background. They had to appreciate who you were and that you wanted to be you, and they wanted to help you be you. And I think sometimes these days we focus too much telling young people they have to find someone exactly like themselves in order to find a mentor. And as I said, I talked about my grandmother and Sally Lurton, and they were like me and that kind of stuff, but not in my professional life.
Well, very well said.
I would absolutely concur that the strong men whose shoulders I stood on in New Jersey, who brought me in, and I was not certainly bold when I was in my early 30s, and still building a political base and growing into position, included Senator Ray Lesniak, who appointed me to be the first woman treasurer. And we spent many days collaborating, along with, at the time, Congressman Bob Torselli.
Oh, yeah.
Jim McGreevey, when he was a lobbyist for Merck, and also at our table was Bob Rowe. we became lifetime friends. They mentored me. It was not always easy. And it was a very, very rewarding path. But the gentleman that I missed the most was the dean of the Democratic Party in New Jersey, an African-American key leader who became one of President Clinton's strategic advisors, Calvin West. And Calvin died 2 years ago. Not only did he mentor me, but he also mentored my children. Was instrumental in my daughter Rebecca obtaining her first position with his guidance in the Essex County Council's office. So absolutely, we should not have mentors that are just like us, whether it be age, ethnicity, nation of origin. The more equity, diversity, and inclusion that we truly bring to our own personal development, and then dig deep to try to mentor those that don't look like us. Exactly. I think you're so on point, Doctor. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you as well. Okay, we're going to move on to another question. I mean, you've answered this question a little bit, but maybe a little bit more detail. And it's, how did being Jewish help or hinder you in your aspirations? And what Jewish values helped inspire you in reaching your goals? And Dr. Gittenstein, I think you had some comments about this.
Sure, thank you so much. I'll be honest with you. I cannot think of any way that being Jewish hindered my aspirations. Now, being Jewish may have limited opportunities, but it did hinder my aspiration. I'll give you an example. So during that period of time when I was applying for presidencies and provostships, I applied for a presidency of a small private school in North Carolina that shall go nameless. It was associated with the Methodist Church. And when they responded to my materials, they responded acknowledging the materials, thanking me for applying, blah, 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 blah. And then said, embedded in the usual language describing the expectation for leadership, academic credentials, they also said, and of course, while there is no requirement with regard to religious affiliation, it is understood that the president must become a member of the local Methodist Church. So I frankly just did not respond. So my point is, that did not hinder my aspiration. It just made real clear that this was not the job for me. I have found that being Jewish, particularly being Jewish in places where Jews are considered exotic or different, helped me in my leadership in some of what the commissioner was talking about before, valuing difference and realizing that the American dream is based on valuing differences of opinion and crafting them together to make a better union. That's what it's all about. It's like leading from the periphery. And one of my favorite books one of my favorite books in general is Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. And he talks about how you see things different because of this different perspective. One of the things I'm proudest of at TCNJ is the improvement in the diversity of the student body, the faculty and the staff, the senior staff at the college. And at the very same time as that diversity was being enhanced, the four-year graduation rate was being enhanced. And that puts the lie to that canard that people coming from underrepresented backgrounds simply can't graduate in 4 years. Well, yeah, they can. If you provide the right kind of environment and you create, the Posse Foundation has this concept of creating posses, that you create a community where people sort of see themselves and feel that support. And it can be done. And it can be done by increasing the diversity, not only of the student body, but of the leadership. when I look at the cabinet that I created, that's the senior leadership at TCNJ, it was the most diverse senior leadership that the college ever had. And I think it's more diverse than it is now. My senior leadership included people of color, LGBTQ members, women, and yes, a number of Jews, including myself. And I think that difference of opinion helped us craft a direction for the school that was healthy for the future. Another aspect of Jewish heritage, of course, you would expect for an academic that permeates my leadership is the celebration and honoring of intellectual endeavor. The power of the word. That was true when I was an English professor, was also true while I was an administrator. And I think this emphasis on intellectual leadership is proven most significantly by the outcomes of what happened from the students after graduation at TCNJ. There was a recent survey done of colleges and universities in New Jersey, and what was the percentage, the number and the percentage of undergraduate students who went on to pursue doctorates. The number one was, of course, Princeton. The number two was Rutgers, New Brunswick. The number three was TCNJ. But if you look rather than at numbers, but at percentage of graduates, number one is Princeton and number two is TCNJ. And I think that shows that this embracing of intellectual leadership is something that is a very Jewish thing. It's also very much an academic thing. I genuinely believe that higher education does some of the most important work in the world. And if the crazies out there will just leave it alone, it will save the world. I genuinely believe.
Well, thank you, Dr. Gittenstein. And I know, Commissioner Fry, you talked about, I know, your Jewish values. I don't know if you had anything else to add, or being Jewish, how did it help or hinder you in reaching the position you reached?
So quickly, to save time, I bring Tikkun Olam to every infrastructure project to help our communities.
Well, thank you. And I guess for you, Rabbi Solstead, of course, being Jewish, so not something that we view as something that hindered you at all in reaching your aspiration.
I would say it's something that infused every moment of my life.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on to the next question. How do you personally view power? And what do you hope power will help you achieve? And I know, Commissioner Fry, you had something to comment on this question.
Yes, Helene, thank you again. So the term power or powerful women can equate with a woman of valor. Mm-hmm. Jewish women like Golda Meir, a role model for generations, taught us the value of civic engagement and strong voice. I grew up in the 70s with very few sisters sitting beside me in my political science classes at Kean University. In fact, when I compare the teachings of Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged, which did have an influence on my career path, promoting fierce independence, to modern politics, as often the only female voice in the class, my perspectives were often challenged and belittled. Today, much has changed. How exciting for us to see, even during this horrible pandemic, our first woman vice president, Kamala Harris, sitting in the highest seat of power. And if any of you saw the recent most beautiful and powerful first speech in the chamber, with her sitting hand in hand with Nancy Pelosi, wow, if that doesn't define the power of women and a breakthrough,
Well, in case we have time
So-
for, yeah, just, I'm sorry.
So
Yeah. Mhm.
we must question today. We must question, why so long, America? Why so long for women to be at that place? Continue to raise your voices in prayer, solidarity, and lead where you can. When you are fearful, dig deeper. Confidence is built by every failure. When we can rise higher and learn, achieve after each failure, that is what brings us both personal power and growth. My journey has had many difficult roads, and no matter the challenge, my career, my strength. My personal power comes with each infrastructure project, as I've mentioned, with that project development cradle to grave. I often set strategies for securing federal or state funding on mega projects as the woman behind the curtain, never seeking credit, always a firm hand, sometimes a benevolent dictator, yes, always humor, but my mantra has always been, we set a clean table and everyone eats. And I bring that to my everyday life, where at our table, we have always had political adversaries, even in my home, for meals, breaking bread, to promote communication, change, and a bit of good matzo ball soup, which I will admit my daughters make, not me, because their seasoning's a bit exotic. I will close by saying, when I look into the eyes of my daughters, is when I see true power. I see strength, knowing that the seeds that I planted at home have resulted in creating strong, intelligent daughters who will serve their community for generations to come. Baruch Hashem, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Commissioner Fryer, very much. I also wanted to let everybody know, if you didn't already, that the chat is now open for questions and answers, questions that you may have for our panelists. And I do have just one more question before we go to our chat. This is for Rabbi Salston, and it's, how could we as women use the strengths we have developed to change our vision of the world? That's a very big question, but how can we basically empower women in the future generations?
Thank you, Helene. The reason I turned my camera off for a moment is I felt the need to take a piece of art off my wall that Commissioner Fryer inspired me of when you mentioned Women of Valor. This is made by one of my sister scribes, Ariel Hasman in Chicago, and it is some of the verses of Eshet Chayil scribed in the shape of the Wonder Woman logo.
Oh, wow.
Wonderful. And this is very on cool. I'm in my background. This is the room that I Zoom my services from. So I have my background, painting by my mother that's currently present here. She's here, my mom. And I face some pictures of my family of being connected to my story and my foundation, and pieces like this of inspiration and things to do to inspire other women, and leaning into our texts. And I want to amend what I said earlier. I have not encountered stereotypes of myself other than expectations of what I might be, and then proving otherwise in my current work. When I said I don't experience much of that, I mean, I don't actually experience that. I am the new young rabbi, and I am showing them and getting to know them in my community in my own way.
Lovely.
I think that, okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we have the first question from our chat, and it is, are women good mentors for other women?
I think they can be. I think they can be. Some people and some women are just not good mentors.
Mhm.
But some men are not good mentors too. But I think it's part of our responsibility as leaders to be mentors for women. I would also submit to be mentors for people of color.
Mhm. Okay. And does anybody else have a comment on how, we can, kind of change, make changes? For instance, how can we achieve more equity for women in the workplace? How can we kind of like break that glass ceiling that we all know is still there? What steps could we take to kind of meet those challenges? And anyone have a comment?
So each one teach one. I would say at PSEG, we have not broken, we have shattered those ceilings.
Oh, wow.
We have implemented mentoring programs and Women United, which is a league of mentors. And we actually go through training to train not only women of color, men of color, Latinos, Asians. We stand and support each other in solidarity with diversity training. And it's not just a blah, blah, blah conversation. We live it every day after many years of discrimination. And for me, one of the most exciting things is when I see a line woman, when you see a storm, you look up and you see a woman up 40 feet high repairing a downed power wire. Those are very lucrative positions, and that is probably the best definition in my industry of how we can mentor. But we must all dig deeper in our community. We must mentor each other, whether it says how to be a good caregiver, how to balance during the pandemic, work, life, being new mom. Traditionally, Jewish women have had circles of support. And there's much that I would say and challenge each of you today. How do we dig deeper and continue to mentor and grow each other, not to be insular, but almost from bad comes good, to use this pandemic as a time that everyone who has put in the time today, how do we commit as a group to continue the conversation and mentoring?
Well, thank you very much. Any other comments, Rabbi Salston?
For something that I try to do of mentoring by leading by example, and also enabling and building the foundations for other women and other people at the margins, having seen changes that could make it much simpler for people to pursue their goals. Things like ensuring that there are changing tables and places to pump in workplaces, in synagogues. Advocating when negotiating a contract, not for maternity leave, but for renaming it parental leave, will open the door for future contracts for our male and non-binary colleagues to normalize that they should be receiving parental leave as well. Very simple change that helps all of us. That I think women have the power to make small changes that are huge, actually.
I think that's such a good point. And I also think part of it is giving permission to women to ask for these legitimate kinds of things. Again, I'm in a different generation than you, Rabbi, but both of my children are adopted. And when I adopted them, it never even occurred to me to ask for parental leave. So Pauline came, my eldest child, who's 42 now. She doesn't like me telling that, but at any rate, when she came to live with us on a Friday, I went back to work on Monday. Wow. Now that was stupid. I mean, it was stupid. It was wrong, and I should have known better, but I didn't have any women colleagues around me saying, that's stupid. what are you doing? It's not good for the child. It's not good for you. And it wasn't. I mean, we ended up fine, but I'm just saying.
Right. I think that we've become much more aware, and that awareness has really created that we have the right to ask for these types of things. And, now we are certainly doing it a lot more. And, we have a lot of people to thank for this, right? Like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, for instance, of blessed memory, right? And okay, now there's a question for Rabbi Salston, and it says, what encouraged you to become a sopheret, a position that I guess we would more traditionally associate with a male?
So thank you for that question. I am a Sopheret Stam. Sopheret in modern Hebrew means writer, and Stam, Sifrei Torah, Tefillin, and Mezuzot, acronym. I had been following the blog of another woman from the time I was a teenager and contemplating issues of egalitarianism and putting on tefillin. And I discovered Jen Taylor Friedman, the HaSopheret, when I was about 16. And I was always crafty. I was always making things, doodling. I never wanted to train formally as an artist. But when I was a yeshiva student, when I was in college, Jen Taylor Friedman was teaching a part-time course on Torah maintenance. And to use the phrase, I leaned in and found myself a mentor. I asked if I could be her apprentice.
Wow. Cool. Very cool. And we have one more question, and it's quite a long one, but I'll read it. How do young women build their confidence toward becoming a stronger person and fearlessness to grow, right? Young women. And then, of course, the other answer as well, the other question is, where does a woman begin to gain this confidence even after 50? So we have the young women gaining that, and then we have women after 50. So I don't know if anybody wants to jump in. We only have a minute or two, perhaps for young women. Oh, Karen, yes.
So as a mother of two younger career women, I will share that after 50, I gained confidence through their actions in many instances. I'll give a quick example. My daughter, Juliana, was attending Montclair State. She was on a path to become a speech pathologist, accepted to Yeshiva University. We walked the campus. She went in, had her interview, and she was very silent as we left. I thought, oh, this is it. We're going to have to find an apartment. And I went into my normal helicopter mom mode of steps that we would have to take. 2 weeks later, and this has really been her MO on many occurrences, she announced to me that she had just taken a position at an entry level at a hedge fund on Wall Street at Rockefeller Plaza to train to be a risk manager. And I frankly was shocked because her whole academic studies were psychology and speech pathology. What she taught me, and this I think is a good closing remark, the beauty today is there's not just one path. We can pivot. We don't have to just follow one path, nor do we have to listen to our mothers. Or do we have to not worry about shaking things up. We have to be disruptors. If we're not disruptors, we cannot change and continue success. And oh, has she taught me how to be a disruptor with her success at a young age by pivoting. I'd also like to take a quick moment and thank a mommy mentor, because yes, I've also been very stupid when it comes to parenting, often blindfolded with twins and a daughter who has challenged me. And on this Zoom is Susan Hammer. Susan has been very active with Temple B'nai Shalom, coached me through a high-risk pregnancy, and is truly my sister. So in closing remark, I'll also say there is nothing that is more cherished than our friends who become our family. and can tell us sometimes when we need to either change or wake up. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and many comments thanking all the presenters, well-rounded, very inspiring words. And now it's time for us to move into our breakout sessions where we're going to further address these issues about women and power.
Well, thank you for including us. I know we're leaving now, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much every morning with a new opportunity for.
Good luck on the rest of the conference.
Right, and if you do want to come back for the final remarks, they'll be probably in about 20 minutes. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you again for everything.
Shalom.
I guess everyone will be assigned to breakout rooms. Okay, great. I hope that everyone has enjoyed both the panel presentation and the breakout sessions this morning. I hope that this presentation has helped you understand the meaning of power for women, and I hope that you've had the opportunity to share some of your ideas within the smaller groups. As women, we all matter, and all our voices need to be heard. And as you've heard, it is connectivity and collaboration that make the difference for women. We've learned quite a lot from the stories that our panelists have shared, and some of the ideas and things that keep them going are show what you could do and just do it. Be yourself, valuing all sorts of differences of opinion, leading from the periphery, having mentors that are both male and female. And for some of us, it was our grandmothers that were our mentors and our rock in our lives. So hopefully the stories will help inspire us and excite us to reach our dreams and reach even higher goals. We strive for equity in the workplace, as we still know that women have a long way to go towards equal pay for equal work. In some fields, women earn only 80% of what men earn. We are still reaching higher, trying to break the glass ceiling that we know is still there. There are only 38 women CEOs in the Fortune 500 companies. Women make up only 27% of the members of Congress. We need to increase our confidence since we already have the competence. And we know that when we are together, we have incredible strength and we could accomplish so much. Together, we could change our vision of the world. Soon, we won't have to celebrate first or even seconds for women, since women will be well on their way to leadership boards everywhere, and it will just be the norm. Okay, to our breakout room leaders, does anyone have any insightful moments or interesting comments that you wish to share with us? Is anybody? Okay, let's see. I can't really see the screen right now, so let me just see. If there's anyone that has any comments, you can raise your hands to share. Anyone?
I can.
Okay, great. Okay.
In our room, first, it was wonderful being with everyone, and everyone loved the program. Golda Meir came up in the conversation, and how, I think it was from Tova Friedman, who basically spoke about Golda Meir and how she stood in front of her country. She happened to be in Israel, Tova, at the time, and how Golda Meir stood up in front of everyone and took responsibility for the loss of life. And that was just something for a woman. Talk about just do it. She did her job, and she did everything she could to help her country and be behind her country. And I mentioned that Yitzhak Rabin gave her credit for Israel because of all the money that she raised traveling the world, and that it was her financing that helped there be a state of Israel. So
wow.
It was wonderful to hear that, along with all the comments about the beauty of your program. So you did great.
Oh, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Okay, does anyone else have anything to share from their breakout session?
Helene, this is Susan. I could say a couple.
Beautiful. Thanks.
In my group, they actually talked about somebody's stepmother being a person they admired, their grandmother, their single mothers, and also a lot of their sisterhood presidents. I don't remember all the names, and some of the people that they met along the line actually through Women's League or women that they admire.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Thanks for sharing.
And I also can, Terry.
Perfect, thank you.
So in our group, first of all, I went to 4 groups before we got there, so they were just having their own chat, but it was very interesting because Fran Katz was talking about her personal story, but her personal story is connected to her husband and his connected to having been a Holocaust survivor, learning to make your way in the world, work hard, and that women and men are inextricably linked to one another, so that power may not be only men or women, but that which comes together between people. And another thing that somebody said was, and it was like sort of cut and dried like this, that men are often using power for their personal achievement, needs, accomplishments, and women tend to use power in a cooperative and collaborative purpose. And I thought, well, that's what we're all here for, right? That's
exactly
that's exactly what makes us people in this room together. So I thought that was like as succinctly said as I've ever thought.
Wow.
Can I just piggyback on that?
Certainly.
Sure.
In our group, or what you just said, Terry, is interesting because I asked, how do you think women view power differently than men? And our group did say something very similar. They said that women see things overall and an end goal, and men are more ego centered. Just similar to what you just said.
This is Eileen, I'll just chime in.
Sure.
Right. In our group, the same thing. Men have power for power's sake. Okay, where women, it's more nurturing and a team to accomplish something, but not necessarily to promote just themselves. But our advice to our daughters, although we do think our daughters are maybe a different generation than we were, that if you want to get ahead, you need to speak up. Okay, just don't stay there and let the world go around you, but make your interests known, and so that you can accomplish your goals.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. And if there's is there anyone else? We have maybe a minute left. If anyone else wants to chime in.
Yeah, me, Meryl.
Certainly, Meryl.
So, in my group, it was very interesting. 2 of the career questions that we asked about. One woman was in the corrections, in the correction world, prison, and the other was a pharmacist. And both of them were really in male-oriented professions. And one, the pharmacist, she was doing it in the 60s or during that time. And these questions came up that if they wanted to become pregnant, they had to leave their job. And if they said, well, I'm not ready to leave yet, it would be a judgmental call to them, like, who's going to raise your children then? What do you mean you're not going to leave? So even being successful in that world, they still had to stand out as far as being the mother and being, in charge of what's going to happen to your child once your child is born. I agree with Eileen was saying that it's hard to compare asking your daughter or instructing your daughter in today's world which route to follow, because they're in such a different world than we're in. And they see things totally differently. They see that there are things that are unjust and they go after it or they speak their mind. I would have never have spoken my mind in certain situations out of intimidation, out of fear, whatever. But to them, this is part of being an adult in today's society. So it's interesting if you got answers from how we would instruct our daughters, because I just think our daughters would be instructing us today.
That's a very good point, Meryl. And
Yeah.
again, okay, I'd like again to thank our panelists, Commissioner Fryer, Dr. Barbara Gittenstein, and Rabbi Rachel Salston for their inspired presentation. I'd also like to thank our breakout room leaders. And finally, the program wouldn't have been possible without the support of our programming committee, who took an idea that I had and helped it reach fruition. Please again acknowledge and thank our conference committee members, which include Meryl Balaban, Hetty Berman, Sheila Kaufman, Terry Maines, Eileen Rothman, Teresa Samter, and Susan Winter. And now there's going to be a Zoom break. Please leave Zoom on, but mute your audio and hide your video. Spring Conference will restart promptly at 12 o'clock. Okay, so hope to see everybody again very shortly. Take care.
Ladies, we're going to be starting our program, but first I have a housekeeping item that I need to tell you. If you would like to, first of all, you have your program, and on the last page, it shows the donations that people have made. Many people have made donations in honor of Lynette today and the incoming board. And if you would still like to donate, we'll accept your checks. And you can note our Sheila Kaufman has kindly put in the address of our treasurer where you can mail these checks. And then we'll be updating our constant contact, and perhaps on the website, all the donors or the program. Somehow we'll get them all listed. But if you would like to donate, the Cindy Manis, our region treasurer, her address is in the chat. And thank you, Sheila, for doing that. All righty. So we're going to start our afternoon program. And the first I'd like to say, Helene, we were all discussing it while we were waiting for the break, and it was a great program. And thank you and Susan and Terry and the committee for a fascinating, really important program. We were all riveted to what our guests had to say today. All right, now we're going to start our milestone award section. And we're going to present the Milestones Award of all our sisterhoods who are celebrating an anniversary with Women's League. Susan? Susan is our sisterhood support vice president. I'm sorry.
And actually, I'm supposed to be getting the PowerPoint sent to me.
There you go.
Except, okay, right here. Okay, so I know. Okay. So I'm going to be presenting the actually 17 synagogues that have milestone awards. Oh, wait a second. Okay. For 45 years of affiliation with Women's League is Congregation Shamrei Torah in Wayne, and the sisterhood president is Linda Gaba. For 50 years affiliation, Congregation B'nai Tikva in North Brunswick, and we have two sisterhood co-presidents, would be Lori Zuckerman and Shelley Westright. Wait a second. For 55 years, we have Temple Beth Am in Aberdeen, and the sisterhood president is Sandy Finkelstein. For 60 years of affiliation, we have Congregation Ahavat Olam in Howell, and the sisterhood president is Janet Stelzer. Also for 60 years, we have Congregation Beth Or in Oak Ridge, and it's Harriet Rebowitz is the sisterhood president. Oh, whoops, how do I go back? I skipped one. I can, okay, there it. No, wait, I think I missed one. Is there a way to go back? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's closer.
Yeah, it's closer and it's going forward instead. Okay, thank
There
you.
she is.
This is the first time I've ever done this before. Actually, Tempo Emmanuel, it says 60 years, but I thought it was 65 in Gloucester, and it's Toby Glazer, who's the sisterhood president.
Yes, it is 65 years.
Okay, so, for also 65 years, we have Fair Lawn Jewish Center, Congregation B'nai Israel in Fair Lawn, and the sisterhood president is Jennifer Mendelson. Also 65 years is Congregation Gesher Shalom in Fort Lee JCC, Fort Lee, and Ethel Chisholm is the sisterhood president. Also 65 years, we have a lot of 65 years, is Congregation Beth El in South Orange, and Claire Nierenberg is the sisterhood liaison to the Women's League. Another 65 years is the Women's League of Temple Beth Am Yisrael in Springfield, and the sisterhood president is Helen Jennings. For 70 years affiliation is Congregation B'nai Israel in Toms River, and we have two sisterhood co-presidents, which would be Dina Pringle and Susan Schmiel. Okay, and 70 years affiliation in West Orange is B'nai Shalom, and the sisterhood president is Trudy Beer. 80 years, now we're at 80 years affiliation. We have added Shalom in Morris Plains, and we have two sisterhood co-presidents, Jan Harter and Valerie Capello. And then 85 years affiliation in Caldwell is Congregation Agadah Israel, and the sisterhood president is Cindy Goldstein. Okay, another 85 years is Tethel Beth El Mokah Hayim in Cranford, and we have three co-presidents, Gail Solomon, Sydney Solomon, Sandra Springer. 85 years also is Temple Emmanuel of the Pascott Valley in Woodcliff Lake, and the sisterhood co-presidents are Sandra Foreman and Stacy Klonsky. And then 90 years affiliation is the Highland Park Conservative Temple, Congregation Ansha Emmett, and our sisterhood president is Marcia Cleos, and it's in Highland Park, New Jersey. And congratulations to everybody for the milestone.
Thank you, Susan. Even though there was a typo on the PowerPoint, they would still get the correct. Everyone should have or is in the process of getting their certificate, their award certificate in the mail, and they will have the right years of affiliation from Women's League. We apologize for the typo, but Sheila is our #1 person, and our region would be lost without her. And I just don't, talking about a busy woman, Sheila, I just don't know how you do it. You teach us all about Zoom, and you're so calm and patient. We just love you to death. Thank you. Okay, so
Teresa,
now,
I think that was my error. My apologies.
no, but we're all,
sorry.
it is all of our, well, we all have eyes to read, and we all missed it. And so and it's ultimately my fault, but they will get the correct certificate. So even though it's wrong here, they will get the right number. So now we're going to go forward to our Torah Fund video, a virtual visit to Germany. And I'd like to call on Donna Burkett to first talk about a little bit about Torah Fund. She's our Torah Fund Vice President, and she will speak about more about the Biakad campaign that Barbara spoke about. Barbara Ezring spoke about this morning. Donna?
Hey, thank you, Teresa, and hi, everybody. It is great to see everybody, and I hope everybody's enjoying the program as much as I am. I think we all are. I think it's outstanding. So I just want to really thank each and every one of you for your ongoing commitment to Torah Fund, especially through this pandemic year. This truly shows your devotion to making sure that conservative Masorti Judaism thrives. And you've all made my work as the Torah Fund VP pretty easy this year. And I really appreciate it. I am the outgoing VP. It's 3 years went by in a flash. I am going to be the sisterhood support, so I'll still be in touch with everybody in a different way. And with our Biyachad campaign continuing for another year, I have no doubt that we will all be Yachad together, make it a year of continued growth and strength. So thank you again for your devotion, commitment, and generous donations, as I know you will continue. And I would like to introduce a video featuring the Zacharias Frankel College in Germany. And it's going to make your pride swell when you see how far we've come and where we're going. It's a very exciting video. So enjoy it and stay well and healthy and enjoy the rest of the program.
Als ich mich dafür entschieden habe, Rabbinerin zu werden, standen mir die Türen von vielen Ausbildungsstätten offen. Der Grund, warum ich mich dann für das Zacharias Frankel Kolleg entschieden habe, ist, weil ich teilhaben wollte an diesem Projekt, ein neues Judentum zu denken innerhalb des Zentrum Europas.
For me, it came at the right time. I just moved to Berlin. Coming out of Israel and coming into Berlin, my Jewish identity, my Jewish practice became more and more relevant and more important. I started being in touch with people and people were kind of asking me questions and we were doing Shabbat services at my house. Yeah, I kind of started to feel a bit like a rabbi. And then I heard that they were opening the Zacharias Frankel College in Berlin and I was loving Berlin. So everything fit together and I joined.
Das Wichtige an Masorti oder das Entscheidende ist, dass es wirklich halachisch fundiert ist, also dass ein großes Augenmerk auf das jüdische Religionsgesetz gelegt wird, aber dass es immer im Zusammenspiel tatsächlich mit den modernen Fragen auch betrachtet wird. Weltweit gibt es insgesamt 5 Masorti-Rabbiner-Seminare. Zacharias Frankel wurde 1854 der Gründungsdirektor vom Jüdisch-Theologischen Seminar in Breslau. Und aus Breslau sind dann sehr viele Impulse ausgegangen. Später ist es zur Gründung vom Jewish Theological Seminary in New York gekommen. Wir kooperieren mit der Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies in Los Angeles, die an der Westküste sitzt. Und es gibt in Buenos Aires in Argentinien noch das Seminario Rabbinico und dann natürlich in Israel das Schechter Institute, wozu das Schechter Rabbinical Seminary gehört.
Also das Zacharias Frankel College gibt all seinen Studenten die Möglichkeit, sich frei zu entfalten. Sie versuchen, die Tradition authentisch und intensiv zu leben, aber gleichzeitig an das moderne Leben anzupassen. Das schlägt sich vor allem in einer gewissen Toleranz nieder, dass wir alle Menschen willkommen heißen, auf alle Juden zugehen wollen. Das ist unser Leitmotto.
So I brought the Gebetbuch für die neue Synagoge in Berlin, Oranienburger. The emphasis on tradition, Hebrew, but also Talmud study. In a lot of seminaries, you get a very broad education of Jewish studies, but you don't get the opportunity to study Talmud so much. And I really wanted to focus on rabbinical texts and on Talmud, and you can do that at Zacharias.
¿Esto cómo lo hacías, la pausa esta? Para mí lo más importante es que somos un grupo muy internacional de estudiantes de todas las partes del mundo. Creo que no hay nadie que venga del mismo país. Y eso hace que nos enriquezcamos muchísimo más. La perspectiva que cada estudiante da desde su punto de vista, desde la comunidad a la que pertenece, desde el país del que viene y desde la diferente educación que ha tenido.
Ich bin auch jemand, der dort sehr gut hinpasst. Einmal natürlich, weil ich dort Freunde habe, die auch wie eine Familie in gewisser Form sind, aber auch, weil ich dort eine sehr gute Lerngruppe habe. Also Leute, mit denen ich gerne studiere. Wir helfen einander, wir verbringen viel Zeit miteinander.
Ich schätze das Studium in Berlin sehr, eben auch durch die kulturelle Vielfalt, die Berlin als Stadt mit sich bringt.
One of the great things about Berlin is that you have many Jewish communities and there are many different opportunities to find your niche somewhere.
So part of our 5-year learning curriculum is 1 year in Israel, in Jerusalem. We study at the Conservative Yeshiva in Jerusalem, and that's probably the most influential part of my studies, I'd say, for me.
Aussi, c'est bien d'être à la yeshiva parce que tu connais les autres rabbins du monde, surtout des États-Unis, mais tu connais aussi les rabbins qui viennent du séminario de Buenos Aires, et aussi tu connais les gens qui viennent de Londres. Donc c'était très enrichissant de connaître tous ces gens et de voir comment ils faisaient aussi.
Ich glaube, dass zukünftig Rabbiner und Rabbinerinnen in Deutschland viel mehr auch auf außergemeindlichen Ebenen arbeiten werden müssen. Das bezieht sich auf Studentengruppen, Schulunterricht, soziale Netzwerke. Das Gemeindeleben wird natürlich auch zukünftig wichtig sein, aber ich denke, dass gerade auch wir im Frankel College wissen, dass der klassische Gemeindeberuf nicht das Einzige ist, was dem Rabbiner oder der Rabbinerin offen steht und von Interesse und Wichtigkeit sein wird.
I think at the time at the Frankel College, I've learned also to trust myself, that I have something to give to the world, and also not to trust myself too much. I think to keep asking questions.
Étudier ici à Berlin, au Zacharias Frankel, ça veut dire pour moi qu'on a une opportunité magnifique d'être au milieu de l'Europe, mais il faut être conscient que c'est à nous de faire notre propre chemin.
Thank you, Donna, for speaking about Torah Fund. And I hope you all enjoyed the video. It seems like a very lovely college, and I would love to go visit someday. But I know they're doing great work there and at all the other 4 seminaries. So thank you for that. Now we're getting to our important part of our afternoon that everyone's waiting for. And now I'd like to ask Eileen Rothman, our immediate past region president, our nominating chair, and now our discharging officer, to please come. I would say come up on the bima, but please discharge the board.
Okay. There we go. This afternoon, we celebrate the discharge and the installation of our Garden State Region officers and board of directors. And I'm starting with I have the honor of doing the discharge. Since its founding in 1918, our conservative women have become rabbis and cantors, Jewish educators, Jewish scholars, executive directors, synagogue presidents. We've also been doctors, lawyers, engineers, social workers, college presidents, commissioners, and even more. As we have seen this morning, we have moved from the periphery to the center of the action. Today, we honor and discharge the Garden State Region officers and board from 2018 to 2021 who have been the center of the action for the Garden State Region for the past 3 years. They have been the heart and soul of the Garden State Region for these years. They have arranged fabulous programs and enrichment for our sisterhoods. They've connected the Jewish women between our sisterhoods, and they have skillfully and successfully promoted the philanthropies of Women's League for Conservative Judaism, which supports conservative Judaism and Israel for future generations. Not only have they been the spiritual soul, S-O-U-L, of the Garden State Region, but they've also been the S-O-L-E soul, the bottom of the foot or boot upon which things and people rest when standing. This past year and a half, the pandemic provided a situation which was not exactly what they signed up for. But due to their power and purpose and passion and creativity, they managed to keep the Garden State Region and Women's League moving forward, keeping to their mission, even as the rest of the world came to a standstill. Many of the new ideas and processes resulting from this situation will continue to be used when things return to normal, should I say the new normal. As I call the names of our outgoing board and officers, will each of you please sit tall and smile for the camera? I think our producer is going to do his best job to spotlight you, and we're going to be doing this in smaller groups so that we can spotlight everybody. And the first group of members of the board that we're discharging is our convention madrisha, Judy Solomon, our directory coordinator, which is Mirabella Shepard, and our webmaster, Sheila Kaufman. We also have our programming and our education team, Helene Nee, Janice Saferstein, Fran Katz, who served as Israeli Affairs, and Michelle Barbaro for Community Affairs. Each of you rose to meet the relevant challenges of the day. Many of your innovative programming ideas will continue into the next administration. We know that we can continue to depend upon your support of the goals of Women's League. On behalf of the Garden State Region, we thank you and thereby discharge you from your duties as members of the Garden State Region Board. Mazel tov. Now we're going to go to the second group of members of the board. We have our sisterhood support team, Susie Hammer, Terry Maines, Arlene Stein, and our Torah Fund team, Debbie Gerber, Sharon Hammerman, Sebly Hausler, and our Torah Fund Special Gifts, Ruth Ocht. Although we were all forced into a lockdown, your volunteer energy and outreach did not skip a beat. You have ensured that our region thrived under your leadership and continued to meet region goals. We know that we can continue to depend upon your support of the goals of Women's League. On behalf of the Garden State Region, we thank you and thereby discharge you from your duties as members of the Garden State Region Board of Directors. Now we go to group 3, which is our
Eileen, hold on one second. Just go a little slower to make sure everybody gets viewed before you start on. Thank you.
Yasha Koach, everybody. Now we go to our executive committee. Corresponding Secretary Nancy Meyerowitz, Financial Secretary Marlene Oslick, Programming Vice President Lynette Cedar, Sisterhood Support Vice President Susan Winter, Torah Fund Vice President Donna Burkett, Treasurer Cindy Manis, Media Past President, which is me, and our advisors, which are Merrill Balaban and Hetty Bellman. You are truly a marvelous group of women who have assumed leadership positions demanding much time and effort and creativity as we move from our traditional face-to-face gatherings and interactions to our virtual get-togethers online. You have given of yourselves with all your heart and soul and ingenuity and have filled your duties loyally. Please accept this sincere thanks and deep appreciation of your entire region family. We pray that you have been strengthened by the knowledge that you have carried out your responsibilities nobly, and we know that the region has been strengthened by your presence and talent. On behalf of the Garden State region, Toda Rabah, and I do officially discharge each of you from your duties. Yashikawa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'm going on to Teresa, our outgoing president, Teresa Samtor. Please come forward and take the spotlight. It is clear, gosh. Okay, I'm going to pull one of yours from 3 years ago. It is clear that our region and Women's League is an important part of your life and truly in your heart. It is something that you have shared with us and inspired us in your weekly communications. You have looked both to the past and to the future Garden State Region leadership for advice, but you actually have influenced our progress with your own wisdom, creativity, dedication, commitment, and strength. Let me tell you, this past year needed much strength, and you rose to that occasion. You have been the heart and soul, both the soul, S-O-U-L, and the soul, S-O-L-E, of our region, and everyone has come to appreciate your inner beauty. It is with love and respect that we say thank you for all you have done for our region, and now officially discharge you from the office of president. Mazel tov.
Thank you, Eileen. Truly treasure all of the friendship and the love that you're all showing me right now. I didn't think I would feel this emotional, but I thank you. I'm speaking off the cuff now. I did have a speech and I am going to say part of it, but right now, for some reason, this has been the hardest speech I ever had to write or give. And it's not because don't think that I don't want to leave. And I know that Lynette is going to do a great job. I'm so happy she's going to be president. But I know that I'm just wearing a different hat. So it was kind of like, why am I giving a speech? But I did want to take the opportunity to thank people and let them know that I appreciate all of their service to the region and their help and mentoring. And we learned a lot today about all that you have all showed to me and to each other. So that's my off the cuff part, which goes into what I want to say. To paraphrase Isaac Newton, if I turned out to be a success as region president, it was by standing on the shoulders of giants. Today, I would like to thank the terrific women of the Garden State Region Board of Directors for their support over the past 3 years. Your creativity, dedication, and hard work enabled our region to offer some wonderful programs and come through the pandemic stronger and beyond together. Our Waikiki Luau Women of Achievement event was very successful, as Sheila knows by all the journal ads that she had to print and all the times we had to go back and forth with Eileen. But sometimes you can be too successful, and that we all learned that we will need a larger venue the next time. So Lynette, remember that. We need to fine tune some of that. The Garden State region offered creative, successful tour fund events these past 3 years. We had Francine Klagsburn, author of a biography on Golda Meir, another powerful woman, and Rabbi Linda Henry Goodman, who spoke about Women of the Wall. A year later, Dr. Rachel Rosenthal, a Talmudic scholar, told us how ill-chosen words can hurt and have devastating ripple effects, and that we should all choose be chesed, show loving kindness to one another. This past this past November, during the pandemic, we had Mira Davis, now Cantor Davis, give a concert online. Over 80 people joined us on Zoom. By the way, during the pandemic, sisterhoods in the Garden State region, as Donna has been telling you, have continued to raise money for Torah Fund. It is the hard work of women like Judy Tabak, of blessed memory, a Torah Fund chair of Nevi Shalom, and Metuchen, who helped make it happen. She, who passed away, and all the other Torah Fund chairs dedicated many, many hours, and I just wanted to remember her at this time. I want to thank the sisterhood presidents for persevering through the pandemic. It was challenging at first, but after mastering Zoom, you and your sisterhoods have had many successful programs which help sustain your membership at this difficult time. Thank you for reminding me to attend your sisterhood programs. I always felt honored when I was asked to visit and had the opportunity to chat with your members. And to paraphrase another quote, there are no strangers in the Garden State region, only friends you haven't met. I hope you feel that way too. I've made many friends in the Garden State region and in Women's League, all through the magic of sisterhood. And another note, I want to thank conference chair Helene Nee and co-chairs Susan Winter and Terry Maines for planning this wonderful conference. It has been an empowering and thought-provoking and in a way emotional, because I didn't realize the kind of power that I really had. And I also want to thank Sheila and Eileen for your help helping us make our conference so professional. I really do want to thank you for that. Thank you, Marcia Strongen and Toby Mazer, our Women's League consultants, for guiding us through our virtual spring conference. I want to thank our region past presidents, Evelyn Auerbach, Marion Moll, this is where I'm going to choke up, Hetty Bellman, Mara Balaban, and Marlene Oslick for your wisdom, your guidance, and your friendship. This morning when the rabbis was talking about finding mentors, that's what you are to me. And I would not have been able to become region president without your guidance. And another important person who was here earlier today was Debbie Goldich. She was the first one I met at convention that showed me what Women's League is all about. But also, I look to you past presidents with awe, and I just can't believe that I'll be in your small little circle, and you'll be casting a little glow on me, and I'll accept that little glow, and I thank you for that. And now I'd like to ask Meryl, who you know as our past region president, but she's also a Women's League membership vice president, and now our installing officer for the new 2021-2024 Garden State Region Board. Meryl?
Hi. This afternoon, we celebrate the installation of our Garden State Region's 2021-23 Board of Directors. I was inspired by our conference theme of Women, Power, and Purpose as I drew upon ideas to honor and install our board and executive committee. The Talmud tells us we were redeemed from Egypt because of the righteousness of the women of that generation. We are fortunate to have many righteous women who have served as our leaders in the Garden State region and northern and central branches. Their support, advice, mentorship, and invaluable experience as our past presidents are an inspiration to all of us. We thank you all for what you have done and for all that you continue to do. We are a collection of diverse women with varying interests and personalities. We are stitchers and bakers, activists and advocates, survivors and caregivers, book readers and Torah readers. We are mothers and daughters, grandmothers and neighbors. We are team builders and Women's League leaders, but mostly today, we are sisters and friends. As the names of our board and officers are presented, I'd like each of you not to rise, but hold your heads high in pride for the work you've done in the past and the work ahead. You have risen to the challenge, and we thank you for stepping up. Torah Fund is Sharon Hammerman, Debbie Gerber, and Gloria Jaslow and Ruth Ach. Thank you. Is everybody on? Okay. Sisterhood Support Team. We have Susie Hammer, Janice Saperstein, and Sharon Hammerman. Okay. I just want to make sure everyone is viewed. Public Policy and Advocacy Chair, Marlene Oslick. Marlene there. There we go. Okay, now we have a programming team. Social Action is Susan Winter. Israel, Fran Katz. Education, Helene Nee. Community Affairs, Michelle Bobrow. Thank you. Financial team, Arlene Stein. Directory, Susan Safaris. Communications team, our webmaster and Zoom support is Sheila Kaufman. Our Majalcha for the Women's League Convention, Terry Manns. Mazel tov to all of you. Thank you for stepping up and welcome to the Garden State Region's Board of Directors. Now I'd like you to meet our Executive Committee. Eileen Rothman, Communications Secretary. Sevely Hausler, Corresponding Secretary. Cheryl Sessler, Financial Secretary. Judy Solomon, Recording Secretary. Nancy Meyerowitz, Parliamentarian. Meryl Balaban and Hetty Bellman, Board Advisors. Donna Burkett, Sisterhood Support Vice President. Susan Winter, Programming and Education Vice President. Sue Romanoff, Torah Fund Vice President. Cindy Manis, Treasurer. Teresa Samter, a Media Press President and Nominating Chair. And Lynette Tater, Garden State Region President. On behalf of your community, the Garden State region, I thank you for your acceptance of this honor and its daunting responsibility. If we were face to face, I would call Lynette, our newly installed president, up to the podium. Instead, I will briefly speak of her accomplishments as her family and friends fell over all that she has done. Lynette, let me just move this so I can see you. There you are. I just have to change my screen a little bit. I've got everything squished in here. You are no stranger to taking on leadership positions. As sisterhood president for 2 terms in 2 different synagogues, you stepped in to help make your sisterhood in South River and Highland Park a highly recognized and respected organization. When I first met you in Highland Park, I came home and wrote your name down. I still have a piece of paper as a woman who was definitely going to advance through the Women's League ranks. Even at that time, more than 10 years ago, you showed your leadership qualities. And since then, you have been, among other positions, our region's administrative secretary and vice president of programming. It is no surprise that you are now stepping into the shoes of the president of the Garden State region. You are joining the ranks of other women of power and purpose. It is truly my honor to install you. We all look forward to the next 3 years of following your vision for our women. Mazel tov, and may you go from strength to strength. Now I'd like to hand you the region president pin, and through the magic of the internet, we will now pass the pin.
Thank you, Meryl.
You're welcome.
This is also our new calendar diary.
Okay, for the new calendar diary, Debbie has said, may the flame continue to light up the conservative movement and may it light your way.
Thank you so much. And I'm wearing the pin now. And also wanted to welcome my family here and Rabbi Elliot Malamet, my rabbi. Good afternoon, Garden State Region. My name is Lynette Cedar, your new region president. My sisterhood journey in leadership began over 20 years ago when I became sisterhood president for an unaffiliated synagogue, Congregation Anshe Emet of South River. In 2006, Congregation Anshe Emet merged with Highland Park Conservative Temple and became HPCT CAE in Highland Park. In my second sisterhood presidency in Highland Park, I was introduced to Women's League. I attended my first convention in Baltimore where the magic began. I roomed with Lila Frost. I drove in with Eileen Rothman. I enjoyed Vashti's banquet and participated in Books for Baltimore. At convention, I immediately made connections and fell in love with this vital organization that offers so much to conservative Jewish women. To become president of the Garden State region and to rise to this prestigious position is truly an honor and a privilege. Women's League is the largest synagogue-based organization worldwide that includes services to thousands of women and hundreds of women's groups like your sisterhood. This includes the 30 sisterhoods in Northern and Central New Jersey. Thank you to the outstanding nominating committee led by GSR past President Eileen Rothman, as well as to all the members of her team who diligently put together our talented new executive board. I want to thank Teresa Samter for an outstanding 3 years of service as president to all the sisterhoods in our region. Welcome to all members of our executive board. I look forward to working with you. I want to thank Helene Nee, who worked tirelessly with Susan Winter and Terry Maines to create our outstanding program this morning. A special thank you goes to Sheila Kaufman for her graphic design and IT expertise. The program you created is amazing. I hope you all can view it. Eileen, thank you for arranging and innovating our registration process. We should be proud today. 150 people had registered and welcome our guests. Our conference committee received invaluable guidance from Marcia Strongen, support from Toby Mazer, to arrange every little detail of our conference today. Thank you so much. I accept the region's nomination to become your next president and to begin a new chapter for New Jersey, covering 30 synagogues from Bergen County to Toms River. And now let's all open the next chapter, B'Yachad, which means together. B'Yachad is our Torah Fund theme for this and next year. My new administration has 4 goals: being a resource, collaboration, expanding Zoom programming, and growing individual membership. Goal number 1, educate our Garden State region on how Women's League is a resource to your synagogue. I just retired at the end of this February as an inside sales rep. I make calls pitching, I'm here to be a resource to you, but this time there's no commission to be a resource, but the rewards are boundless. Are you, as a conservative Jewish woman, fully aware of the outstanding resource Women's League of Conservative Judaism brings to your sisterhood? We empower sisterhood presidents and their board of directors. We offer consultants and learning materials to help your sisterhood thrive. Some resources Women's League offered are virtual daily minions at noon, Hebrew classes, Women's League reads with author interviews, Judaic arts and craft projects for yourself or to assist those in need in your community. Do you need to update your bylaws? Ask Women's League. Do you need advice to attract younger members? Just ask. Do you need programming ideas? Click on the programming links on our website, WLCJ.org, for a full array of ideas. Are you looking for a successor, and how do you find a new sisterhood president? We can help you. If you have not already done so, please take a moment to download WLCJ.inc and put your app on your cell phone. I encourage you to spend some time later exploring and check out all the resources that we provide. Goal number 2, to encourage collaboration. Collaboration is essential to the success of our organizations. You are never alone in your sisterhood and Women's League. Through collaboration, there are more ideas, innovation, and improved communication. Our programming team, led by Susan Winter, will be reaching out to you to share your program ideas with the region and incorporate you in our monthly Zoom programs. Our sisterhood support team, led by Donna Burkett, will provide you with tips to grow your membership and get involved in community action. The Torah Fund team, led by Susan Romanoff, provides a Torah Fund event in November or December and leads a vital fundraising campaign. Torah Fund is instrumental to educate and train each generation of rabbis, cantors, scholars, camp directors, chaplains, and committed lay leaders. Purchasing your pin is your way to provide vital support and strength to the leaders of the conservative Masorti movement throughout the world. Goal number 3, let's bring together the region and familiarize you with other sisterhoods in the Garden State and virtually make connections throughout New Jersey. This will be done on Zoom every month, tentatively called GSR Virtual Coffee Clatch. I would be interested in your ideas, for example, for games, for speakers, Torah study, cooking demos, recipe sharing at the online reception where you'll meet with me and the board at the end of conference. Please include your suggestions and comments in the evaluation survey that we will be sending you shortly after conference. And also let us know if you are receiving our emails to stay in touch with our weekly events. My last goal, number 4, is to let's grow our individual membership. Women's League has done an exemplary job in the new normal, And as we've heard before, immediately we adapted to operating on Zoom during the pandemic. We held an amazing virtual convention last summer, and somebody commented, not too bad for a bunch of Altacakas. So we're pretty amazing. So we're pretty awesome at getting things done really well and inspiring you along the way. Perhaps you're our guest today or know someone. They may be in a stage of life that they do not have the time or inclination to join a sisterhood or conservative synagogue. Now is a great time to join us. Individual membership involves you in the conservative movement on women's issues, world communities, and provides opportunities to learn Hebrew, attend minions, read great books, participate in social action, and so much more. With your membership for only $36, you will receive Women's League publications on every topic from world affairs to Judaic studies. And you can attend weekly fascinating webinars on Zoom from Women's League and JTS. I am very excited to work with you all and your sisterhoods, B'Yachad, together. I hope to visit your sisterhood in the near future. Thank you and shalom. And I want also to thank the region for these glorious flowers that came on my door. The champagne, the gluten-free assortment from that was picked up from Gloriously Gluten-Free. Also want to thank my son's family for this other bouquet of flowers, and thank you. Shalom.
Congratulations.
Shalom, Lynette. I wanted to say Mazel Tov to you on behalf of the Highland Park Conservative Temple Congregation Anshe Emet. We are so proud of you. I know this has been a very unusual month and of course an unusual time for you. We are so delighted for the leadership that you have brought to our own chapter, and we are so excited for the leadership that you are going to bring to the Garden State region. You are such a vital part of our synagogue life, sisterhood. Every sisterhood plays such an integral role for our communities, for our shuls. We rely on you for programming, for support, especially during this pandemic, where you sisterhoods like ours throughout the Garden State and the country have helped communities to stitch together, to take care of each other, to provide everything from a phone call to a bowl of soup. Sisterhood is so remarkable. I want to honor also the members of our sisterhood who played such an integral role of this program. It was beautiful. Mazel tov to you. Mazel tov to our sisterhood, our new president, and may we all go b'yachad from strength to strength. Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi Malman, for joining us today. You kept peeking in and out and we missed you, but thank you for staying. And we appreciate you honoring us and Lynette by being with us today.
Teresa, hold on. Hold
on. Great. I don't know if you can see, I still don't. Oh no, I lost my page. Just hold on 1 second, ladies. Okay. It got lost. All right. It's still missing. Hold on a minute. Oh, this is the problem. Help.
How can I help you?
I'm trying to open up a document that got closed when I turned my screen, and you can't help me with that.
I unfortunately can't.
And why can't I open it?
I will take this opportunity to thank Justin, who is our tech guru, for helping us out today. Justin was great as switching people, spotlighting, and I thank you for for your male persona in this women's environment. Thank you.
Not a problem. And a lot of what you guys said is so unfortunately true. I love where women are at now and becoming empowered. And you always should have been empowered. And yeah, I'm totally on board with everything that you guys have said today. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Justin. And now it's Lihitriot closing. And I had something I especially wanted to say before we closed. First of all, please stay with us after we end so that we can maybe share more balloons with Lynette and the new region board and celebrate with them as they begin their new journey. Don't forget to fill out your spring conference evaluation, as we mentioned earlier today, that it will be emailed you within a day or two. And please send it back filled out with your comments so that Lynette can hear your suggestions. And now I would like to say in acknowledgement and with gratitude that the Garden State region has a new president and a new board of directors, and that we are biachad together at Spring Conference. Let us say Shehakianu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam Shehakianu Yamanu Yamanu Lazman ha'azeh. Praised are you, Lord, O God, our God, King of the universe, for granting us life, sustaining us, and helping us to reach this day. And Lynette and the new board and all of you, may you go from strength to strength. And Amen. A big hug to all of you.